Alright guys, today I want to go through still to this day, the biggest mistake that I see fighters make. And I have to go through this with every new fighter I've ever worked with. And it will absolutely be a game changer if you're working with fighters or if you are a fighter. Understanding these concepts will be an absolute game changer in your performance. And the reason I brought this video back up is I was recently talking with a friend of mine who's been in the UFC for about a decade now. And we were discussing the difference in the way he trains now versus the way he trained when he first started. And he talked about how when he first started, just like every other young fighter, they go in and they just train hard. And they want to train hard every day, and they just keep going in and going hard. And they think that they can sustain that because every fighter, every athlete just thinks that they're Superman. And they think that the rules of physiology and the way our body adapts to training just don't apply to them. So they just keep pushing. And unfortunately, it's not the fighter's fault, because fighters shouldn't have to understand these principles. It's the coaches who should understand these principles. The coaches, it's our job and our responsibility to make sure that the fighters are making intelligent decisions and that we are planning their training schedule accordingly. But unfortunately, this isn't common knowledge to most sport-specific coaches. And even if it is, many coaches are only inside their own realm, and they don't understand or they don't communicate with all the other coaches that are out there, and they only plan their own training. And unfortunately, the fighter is the one that gets the short end of the stick here. So here's what most fighters do. Here's what a fighter weekly training schedule might look like. And they'll go in and they'll do their boxing practice and their strength and conditioning, wrestling, their BJJ. They're usually training at least twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day, 5 to 6 days a week. And a lot of fighters that I've worked with spar, their most intense sparring days on Fridays. The problem here is what they do is they go into all these training sessions and they try to give 100%. And they think that just go hard, just give it the best, give it all you can, and that's what they do in all these sessions. And the way that works is your nervous system, your body just can't sustain those type of outputs every day, every practice. It's not possible. If you look in any other sport that's well organized and planned out, there's optimal rest periods. The way that we get better is we apply a certain training stress, and then we apply the optimal recovery so that we can recover and get better and super compensate. If you haven't watched my video on the stress response, make sure you go check that one out, where I go further into depth about how we actually apply stress and then recover from it. But if we apply stress on Monday and we give it 100%, let's say all of these practices here, I'm trying to give it 100%. What that ends up being is this practice, I go 100%. Later that day, maybe I'm at 95%, because I'm gonna be fatigued a little bit. Then I sleep and I wake up the next day, and maybe this practice, I woke up and I'm a little recovered, maybe I'm at 96% again. But wrestling was pretty hard, so now I'm down, by Tuesday night, I'm at 85%. And most fighters know what I'm talking about here. When you get to Wednesday, you're already feeling like you got hit by a bus. You're run down, you're tired, you feel like you can't get out of bed in the morning, because we just did 2 hard days back to back, 4 practices. So even if my muscles aren't that tired, even if it was a bunch of different practices, my nervous system is shot. If my nervous system is shot, that means I can't punch as fast, I can't shoot as fast, my cognitive ability is slowed down. Everything that I want to be able to do as a fighter and that I'm training in the gym to try to be able to do better is going to be performing slower. So now I go in Wednesday morning and I'm sparring. Maybe this is some Muay Thai sparring, and I'm only at 78%. So I'm working on being faster and more explosive, but I'm only able to produce 78% output. So basically what I'm doing in that practice is teaching my body that every combination I throw, every reaction to every counter movement I do is slower and less explosive and probably a little bit less technical because I'm fatigued. But I still have to get my strength and conditioning in. So I go here, I'm at 70%. Then my BJJ in the morning, and it's going to go a little easier that day because I'm not going to go super hard. So I'm at 70% still. And then I got that tough Muay Thai practice, and my Muay Thai coach always loves to just crush me with some conditioning and push me really hard. So now I'm down to 68%. And then here we go, Friday morning. Most important practice of the day. That's my full MMA sparring. This is when I'm going to be with all the other pros, and I'm really working on all the techniques that I've worked in all these other practices, putting them all together. This is the most specific to what I'm going to do on fight night. So therefore, what I do in this practice has the most likelihood of transferring into the cage. And I'm going to go in there at 65%. Now, I'm still going to give it my all and push it as hard as I can, so I feel like I'm giving 100%, but my 100% output by Friday morning is only 65% of what I was capable of on Monday morning. So if you look at this, it becomes almost absurd. It's almost comical that this is the type of schedule that elite professional fighters are trying to go through every day, and that coaches are not taking the time to sit them down and say, look, you can't sustain these outputs. So why don't we just plan a little bit more intelligently, and why don't we get something out of all these practices knowing that we can't sustain 100% output at every single one. So let's plan for some of them to be lower output, but still get something out of it. So a much better schedule here would be to do a high-low sequencing of each day. So let's say Monday is going to be my high day. These are going to be high central nervous system demand practices where I'm going to go hard. So I do my boxing, I do my strength and conditioning, and I'm going to do some plyometrics, some speed power work in my strength and conditioning on Monday. Tuesday, I'm still going to go to wrestling, but we're going to do some more drilling. We're going to do some specific training. Doesn't mean it has to be just rolling around really slow. It just means I'm not trying to go balls to the wall 100%, and I'm not trying to go for 2 or 3 hours. I'm going to do a 45 to 60 minute, very technical practice where I really work on fine-tuning some techniques, and I'm going to get something out of that. I'm going to get better in my wrestling. Then I'm going to go to BJJ, and I'm going to do the same thing. Then, Wednesday morning, I'm going to put together some of those skills that I've picked up in my boxing, my wrestling, and my BJJ from Monday and Tuesday, and I'm going to go a little bit higher intensity that day. So this is going to be whatever, wrestling sparring, Muay Thai sparring, whatever it is that day, I'm going to go and I'm going to put that stuff together. And then I'm going to do my strength conditioning again at night. Again, then I'm going to do Thursday, another low threshold day, another low CNS day. So I'm allowing my body to recover. So that way I can get back into Friday at 100%. So in reality, what I got here, earlier on, I had maybe 2 practices upwards of 95%. And the rest of the week, I started operating at lower than 95%. Everything because that accumulating fatigue. By Wednesday, Thursday, I was just lucky to make it to the end of the week. And in reality, on Friday, all I did, the fact that I didn't get hurt in sparring is a good thing, because that's all that was up there. Huge risk for injury and really no reward because I'm not training myself to be faster. But now, because we allowed optimal recovery time through some of this, we now got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 practices at 95% plus, and we got these ones where we still only gave like a 65 to 70% output, but that was the goal. So I wasn't trying to go harder. So not only was I able to recover my nervous system, but I still got 100% out of these practices because I wasn't training myself to be slower under fatigue, because I was focusing on the technical skills and the specific training. So you can see how over time, it's all about the accumulation of total work. If I operate on this kind of schedule and I get 6 practices at 95% plus, and then I get 4 other very good technical practices, and we do that every single week for 10 weeks, and you are only getting 2 or 3 practices at 95% plus, who do you think is going to get better in the long run? So we need to take a more intelligent approach to fighter training and weekly planning. We can't just throw a whole bunch of practices in and have a whole bunch of different coaches who are just training hard and everybody's going hard. It's all about going hard. We got to push 100%. We have to do 2 hours. It's just a very ignorant approach, and the fighters are the one who are going to get hurt, going to get overtrained, and best case scenario, they don't get hurt, and you're training them to be slower and be less explosive that's going to transfer over into what they do. And they will slow down, they will lose a step, they will lose that millisecond, and we all know those marginal changes, those marginal improvements is what can make or break it on fight night. So we need to take a more intelligent approach. We need to stop training fighters like fighters and start training fighters like athletes, because they will be better off in the long run when they can get more out of all of their training.